right. So with that, some of the hosts have got icebreaker questions, but honestly, I feel with Did You Spot, a lot of us are just going to go, did you notice this thing? And so I didn't think we had to prepare anything like that. Does anyone want to share something that they're especially proud of having noticed, or if it took them a lot of tries before they managed? And for this, I'd say just unmute yourself and start talking. If we have some overlap, that's fine, to be honest. I can start if we if there's
well, I can
go. Yes,
I can say something. I mean, it took me forever to understand the noon reference from when they were trying to figure out you know, when Newt said, does it have a hyphen, right? And I listened to it 10 times, and it wasn't until I actually
I'll have to go and undo the lock
before I understood that it was no one, right? But of course Newt figured that out right away, so I love that one.
Yeah, I did too. I actually had to ask my mom to explain that one to me. Did anyone else actually get help figuring out references, or have you been pretty much going it alone? Andrea, do you want to share what kind of help you got?
No, I was nodding along to the no help, just trying to work out alone. And since English is not my first language, sometimes probably I have been missing something. And this is why this particular meeting is very interesting for me, because maybe I just missed something that I would love to know.
True, yes. Speaking of which, there is one of our wonderful hosts has come up with a sort of a timeline of all the scenes, which is keeping track of some of the larger references. I'm just going to put that document into the chat now so anyone can download it if they like. It's a PDF, and I think you can credit Svenja for that. If you end up talking to her later. I'm not sure which room she's going to be in. And I have a question. Is there anything anyone's had to Google in order to prepare, in order to figure out what's going on in this series?
The canal thing, to work out what oh gosh, brain gone. Vanessa?
Yes.
Was doing on the canals during the during the war.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't Google. I'm only vaguely aware that there was she was involved with the not the SOE, but there's something called the a certain type of woman or something. Would you like to explain it to me as someone who didn't bother to Google that one?
The ATS, I think, wasn't that the reference? She wanted to become to become. Auxiliary, it was an auxiliary service for women.
Yeah, it's more specific than that. Let me just need to look up the exact. It is to something women, and I've forgotten what they're called. Who took over from the men who went off to war, who had previously been running the canal boats with goods going up and down. And a group of women, I think about 40 of them in the end, it said. Who took over running the canal boats, you know, in the same way that women went to the factories or to the land. And I will find the exact phrase. If you carry on, I'll look it up and let you know.
Well, idle had horses.
Idle women, that's it.
Idle
women.
Would they have had horses on with their boat too, or was it just that?
I presume they would have done, because that's how these things went in those days. Sorry, my tab. Yeah, I think so, because that's why we see her helping out with the boats on the horses on the canal and things. Right.
I was wondering whether she just knew it.
I don't know that for sure. But women.
I don't want to take somebody else's room thing, but you know, about talking about the idle women. I mean, this has come from another room. What was that thing about dropping the spy? Did anybody pick that up?
Which spy?
Well, you know, after the horses, after she's got the horse to move, she says to the guy whose horse it was, "Well, you can catch us up at the next lock when you have to drop the spy."
No. I think it was.
Spy.
Yeah,
Really
no.
Lusa
It was
Spy.
Lusa Spy. That's it. Thank you. It was.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. But you're not the only one. I saw something on the Padlet too. Somebody asked that, but yeah, I think it was just somebody on the Padlet said something about letting us go past, right? So letting them overtake them.
Is that what it is? Okay, thank you.
Yes, well, thank you on both counts for that, Jennifer, because I actually had no idea what Lusa Spy meant, even though I did hear it as Lusa Spy. Now, Joao, I really hope I'm saying that correctly. You wrote you didn't get the glassware statement, and that was let's see. Would you mind typing into the chat? Was that something Jerry just said? Or when did Jerry say that? I'm assuming that was Jerry saying that. It sounds like him. And Anonymous Fish says, I'd love a full explanation of Jerry's speech. Yes, so actually, has anyone been onto the Padlet yet within this group? I think I've seen a couple of people mentioning it. Andrea, you have? Okay, lovely. So I happen to know that somewhere on the Padlet, no idea where, someone's written up the full chat, the full text of Jerry's speech. So if we'd like to spend some time decoding it within this group, we can. Bev, yes?
It's interesting. Simon Kane was asked on Twitter, some people may have seen this, if he'd worked out what the speech was. And he said he actually hadn't worked it out. John Finnemore knew exactly what was meant by what he was writing when he said it. But Simon Kane just said it just flowed so beautifully, he didn't need to work it out. Which was,
yes.
Yeah.
I think
I'll put a link to that on the transcription on the chat.
Oh, thank you, Morris. Yes. Yes, I think it's definitely a sign of both the sort of the quality of Simon Kane's acting, as well as the quality of the writing, and how much both the writer and the actor know the character, that you can have them speaking absolute gibberish virtually, and both have it flow very well and sound like the character, and have both have the actor feel comfortable speaking in that way. I certainly have been enjoying listening to Jerry. I don't know if anyone else, considers him a bit of a favorite, but I've seen on Twitter that he's quite popular. Rebecca, heaven in a small pool is a reference to the Lilo. That's certainly an interesting take. I wasn't sure whether it would be, because I always thought the Lilo gained significance after Hilla died. But honestly, it would make more sense if that were a thing they were doing together. So that's a very
it might be a stretch, but I don't know. I think obviously it was a nice implication that Lilo came from happy times they'd spent together at some point.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably a bit of a reach, but then again, knowing John Finnemore,
yeah, he is sneaky. Right. So, is there anything else that someone spotted and wants to share? Yes, Bev.
Yeah. When he's talking about the poems, he talks, when the guy comes back and thanks him for the poem, he says that they were mostly about animals and kings, and I spotted that as a reference back to the John Finnemore Souvenir program sketch, where I think it was Margaret or somebody says, have you noticed how all our material is animals or kings? So.
Excellent catch. I'd love to see Jerry's version of Red Trousers, personally.
Yes.
If he could have auditioned for That Was the Week That Was with that, I'm sure he'd have gotten in. That incidentally is another thing I had to Google. That was the week that was, because I was familiar with Tom Lehrer's That Was the Year That Was, but I hadn't realized that in and of itself was a reference to a TV show. Or it's a TV show or a radio show?
TV show.
TV show. Okay, cool. Yes. I Googled and then immediately forgot. So something that we don't necessarily have to do right away, but we're gonna get called back around 11:50, I think, is come up with some of our one insight that we have about about what we've been discussing that we think we'd like to share with the whole group. So if we can keep chatting about whatever we spotted and then decide what our favorite is, or if we want to start with the idea now of picking our favorite thing, what's something that you think is just such a particularly cool thing that you spotted within the context of the show and listening to it? And I don't think we all have to go around, but I encourage people to speak up and share. And oh, Anonymous Fish, I think there are a lot of references to John himself. Yes, I think Alex, having been in a sketch group, was quite funny. And I do know that the Magpies poem is something that John has performed himself, right? Although, was that in a live show? I'm not sure. Okay, yes. So, yeah, is anything, yes, Rebecca.
It's just throwing out ideas of things that I enjoyed spotting. Was I really enjoyed the top hat of Uncle Newt being finding out, obviously not in chronological order, the fact that he was told to buy it by Galley, I think. And then you see at maybe like Vanessa's funeral, Jerry says, "Oh, is that the top hat you wore at that wedding?" And you kind of don't think anything of it, but then you find out that little Russ was actually sick in that hat, and that's the joke of why he's surprised to see that hat still there. So I really enjoyed that one.
I did enjoy the hat too. Yes, at first I thought that Jerry had just been surprised because it was 10 years on since Myra's wedding, and then the additional context of, oh no, Russ puked in it. That's quite good. So that's certainly something that was a fun thing to spot. Anything else? Also, Farron Smith, you've joined us relatively recently, so if you'd like to type anything into the chat, please feel free, or unmute. You can do whatever you like.
I also loved that the horn, the kazoo or whatever it was, made it from the very first Christmas party, right, all the way through to I don't know, was the pancakes the last time it appeared?
I think so. Although you can imagine the pancakes probably have lasted for as a tradition for quite some time. Yes. Was there anything else that you feel very proud of yourself for having noticed? Maybe it took a couple of listen throughs.
Can I add something that I'm curious about, and maybe you folks can help? What was with the Newt? I mean, it sounded like he was, when he was listening to the performer with the to make, I don't know, it sounded like he was at the BBC and he was listening to some performer audition who was so bad. What was Newt? That would have been in between when Newt was teaching, 2 different teaching stints, right? So what was going on with that?
I don't think that was meant to be. I don't think that was Newt. I think that was John Finnemore playing someone else.
Okay, and so who were the 2 people? Who was the person that wasn't Jerry auditioning?
Was that Patrick Nightingale? Was this in the last episode?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you talking about the Desert Island Discs, Jennifer?
No. There's one where they listened to no, it was Newt, because he was saying he hadn't been in the war. The one where the interview where
he said what that character said was he was sending forms to farmers.
Oh, okay, right. But I just assumed that Newt was making up something that he'd done.
Should we?
No, that wasn't Newt.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that wasn't Newt. That's what it was. John Finnemore playing. I think we were talking about that was the week that was, isn't it?
Yes, I do think that was Schmidt says that was Jerry's audition for a TV show. Should we
that was Jerry auditioning. Okay, never mind.
Yes,
I get it. That makes so much more sense to me.
Oh, of course. One thing that I think is quite cute in that is that he's complimented on his scansion and for his songs actually scanning, which the person Finnemore is playing says, most people can't do that. And then in decades and decades later, in Jerry's eulogy for Newt, he says that he would get a halfpenny for every poem as long as it scanned. So we see that this thing he was complimented for in his 20s had come about from the thing he was doing as a 4-year-old in the war. I think that one was quite a sweet thing. I was very pleased to spot that. Anything else? Yes, Andrea.
In combination with that, I really liked that Newt said that if Jerry wanted a raise, I don't remember exactly when it was, that he wanted a 100% raise because he wanted a whole penny. And it was a very, very nice recall, I think.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I realized I should have said hey penny, shouldn't I, instead of half penny. It's entirely wrong. Yes, there are a lot of things which I think as an international watcher, and Jennifer and Andrea, you can tell me whether you feel the same thing. Whether are there moments where you go, oh, is this something that is confusing because it's you know, an esoteric little clue, or is it just a British thing that I just don't know? I had trouble with the word Lilo, for example. Yes.
Well, I'm married to a Brit and was introduced to John Finnemore by him. So I don't think I had too much language issues, apart from perhaps the you know, that was the week that was, or that was the year that was, whatever it was, and the passing by, that I didn't know, but I'm not sure that's something that's common.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So Andrea, I'm sorry, is Mutti just what most people call their moms?
Yeah, Mutter is mother, so short Mutti, even though they anglicize it a little bit by calling it longer, the moot or Mutti, instead of Mutti. But yeah, it's a really usual name.
Yes, my Swiss great-grandmother was called Großmutti, so I recognize that, even though we also mess up the pronunciation through generations of travel to other countries and immigration. So let's, oh, Farron, you saw the Magpies poem live. My goodness. I don't know if you've got a mic or anything, if you don't want to talk or anything, but that is quite cool. We've got 10 minutes left in our room now, and Fiona's asking if we can pick a favorite insight to share. So would we like to start talking about that? You know, do you want to, what's the favorite thing? And I think the idea is that one of us, and it does not have to be me, in fact, ideally it won't be me, one of us will basically unmute in the whole group of us and say, you know, this discussion room, we were talking about these insights, and we decided that this is the coolest thing that we want to share. Does anyone feel like doing that, by the way? No one? Okay, well, how about we keep chatting about what maybe our favorite insight is? You know, it can be one of the ones we talked about already. I mean, I am obviously biased to the one that I just said, so don't listen to me. Yes, Rebecca.
I'll take credit for this. I can't remember if I saw it on the on Twitter somewhere or on the that website, but where Jerry gets the confusion from about the Nightingale song, because obviously the first time we hear it in Midnight and Noon, it's talking about dogs, but when Vanessa is explaining it to Jerry, she says, "Oh, but it's a nightingale singing it," and I think, yeah, it's actually referring to one of the Nightingale siblings singing it, I think. And I really enjoyed that. That took me, I didn't get that.
Yeah, that's definitely a fun insight. You know, it's great seeing the sort of the path of how many little confusions have been added into the thing overall, where you see that Russ somehow ends up never hearing about the incredibly popular Nightingale sang in Berkeley Square, because he just gets that tiny snippet of the one that Jerry did. And I think that also has quite a nice implication, of course, because that means that even though Jerry's song didn't become an ad, it meant he was still singing it to the family afterwards. Yes, Jennifer.
I didn't realize that the top hat was reused after Jerry was sick in it, or not, who was sick in it? Russ. It was Russ, yeah. And I think that's a great story. I think that if that's, are we sure with that, with the timeline? And then I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
All right.
The song thing, I think, is one of the things that makes it such a wonderful commentary on families, because it reminded me that when our son was, and he's now 36, but we used to push him back in the pushchair, singing at the time. There's a program called I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue, where they sing one song to the tune of another, and we'd heard them singing My Old Man's a Dustman to the tune of Girl from Ipanema, and that was the thing that we used to sing, pushing him backwards and forwards. And even now, half of him thinks that that's the right tune for My Old Man's a Dustman, and it will get passed on, I'm sure.
Oh, that's very sweet. Right. Well, it sounds like a lot of people quite like the top hat bit, so perhaps that's what we do want to end up saying. So does anyone feel like sharing? That the insight that we've had, or our favorite preferred insight, is the fact that, let's see, that Jerry's confusion over Newt re-wearing the top hat wasn't because it was old necessarily, but because it had been puked into. Does anyone feel like saying that to everyone else? Come on, I've spoken so much today.
I can volunteer if you want. You just have to help me one more time to. So I liked how you put it, right? Which was simply that Jerry's confusion over Newt's wearing the top hat was that it was because Russ was sick in it.
Yeah, instead of it just being old, it was because.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and we didn't even realize that until the very last episode, which of course also had one of the sweetest moments. And I know this isn't the Made Me Cry group, but it did make me cry when you have the full 5 generations of everyone just singing woof, 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 and all getting the words slightly different because they all had a different version in their heads and hearts. That absolutely broke me. I don't know about anyone else.
All right, you have to make sure that I don't embarrass myself though. So Jerry's confusion over Newt re-wearing the top hat, was it at Vanessa's funeral?
Yes, it was.
At Vanessa's funeral wasn't because it was so old, but just because Russ had been sick in it earlier.
Yes. So does everyone feel okay with that being the grand insight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. And so much thanks.
The other nice thing about that was that when Gally was on the phone to him saying, "Have you got a top hat?" And he said, "No." She said, "You had to get one. It'll last you a lifetime." And it really did.
Yeah.
Yes. So Jennifer, whatever you want to say about the top hat, I think we all kind of like the whole timeline with it. And Joao, you're saying you love the idea that Gally's real name was Angelina and that Jerry's song was a tribute to her. That never occurred to me. That's so sweet. Yes. Oh, that's lovely. So is anyone looking at the Padlet, by the way? Getting
How do we get onto the Padlet?
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. Let's see. Can anyone? Sorry.
Because I'm watching this on the tablet, so.
There's the Padlet link. Thank you for sharing it again, Andrea. And yes, put in the password Cockers. Yes, and so that will show you everything, and it sort of opens up a huge world of all the nerdy stuff we've been doing. I actually haven't opened it yet today, so I need to do that. It's
there's a lot.
The password is with a small c in the beginning. I did it wrong.
Is it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and goodness, it has grown since last time I was here. Do we want to add anything to the Did You Spot? Because we've got about 5 more minutes before we're called back. Yes, we can put anything that we like. I'm just reading through. Someone anonymous said Deborah laments that guessing if people are married is not as exciting as Russian spies. And both of these were involved during the war. That's an interesting insight. I wonder who put that up. And oh, here's something. Apparently, "Strangers on the Shore" is the Mitchell and Webb theme tune, which does add a little new extra level of external reference. Anonymous Fish, number of words in Newt and Jerry's poems. 1 or 2 had 27 rather than 26. Do you remember which one's Fish? And if not, the ugly baby poem. Do we have enough time, do you think, to let's see. Does anyone remember which episode that's in? Oh,
Jerry?
sorry, was that you, Rebecca? Did you say something?
I think it's Jerry.
Oh yes, it would be, wouldn't it? I think, but I don't remember actually. Is it possible that Jerry's version had 27 and that's part of why Newt switches it out? Because remember, he does change the words. Yes. I think so. I think we'd have to re-listen to it. Do we have enough time for that? I'm afraid I don't quite know how to share audio here without it just reflecting and making everyone's ears hurt. I don't suppose anyone has the poem memorized. Didn't think so. Okay, well, we can either leave that a mystery for the ages, or Fish, if you want to bring that up in the second slot that we have after the break, that might work. And I will probably go and investigate that during the break too myself. Yes. Oh yes. Okay, so apparently the aardvark poem also gets changed. So that's an interesting thing. That's very cool. I had not spotted that. But yeah, this is perfect for Did You Spot. Every time Newt makes a correction to Jerry, it's actually changing the word number to the correct length. That's very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's lovely.
That is so clever.
Yeah, I mean that. I don't know if we want to change that from the top hat to the poem thing or anything. I mean, do we want to reevaluate? That's quite cool. But we should definitely, Fish, if you'd like to do this, if you want to put that into the Padlet under Did You Spot, that's a very cool thing indeed. And on that note, we've got about 40 seconds left before we get automatically kicked out. So just to avoid any awkward sudden endings, thank you all for coming and joining me. I'm super excited. Fish, okay, have a go at adding it to the Padlet. And Jennifer, I thank you very much for being willing to take the stage in a couple of minutes after the break. All right, see you all in the main room. Bye, guys.